Yo, what's up, everybody? Yet another video by me again. And I think, like, after watching so many videos where women in specificity are being accosted and assaulted, and even like harassed just on site, I think we start we have to start going about it a different way. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I've been playing like a lot of Monster Hunter, and my brain's a little bit fried, as you can tell. I've been going through like every single iteration of the game, and I'm trying to make this one skill work for me. But yeah, I'm gonna be coming out with a video for that later. But with this video, I want to ask the very obvious question to ask. Excuse me. Why do you want babies? Why do you want babies, sir? Right? Like, if a guy is coming up to a girl, especially that he doesn't know, and then just like, outright harassing them and stuff, like, I think that question should be asked, and it should be asked ad nauseum, because it should also extend to just in general, like, what people want when they, like, enter into foreign countries and they come alone with like the expectation of success. And like, look, I'm not going to prevent anybody from falling in love and stuff, but I'm just going to be realistic. There's going to be a percentage of men who most likely fleeing these like places of destitute or poverty, war, etc. They're going to wind up alone, and then you have like a lot of the problems that we're having today. And excuse me, we have a lot of causes that they'll just like rally behind, whether political, governmental, you know, uh, mercenary, or like fanatic religious. It's all kind of like a pipeline for them, and I feel as if like there's kind of a parallel between like the incels that like the rest of the world creates, and then the ones that the North American like lifestyle creates. Like, so what I mean by that is like the whole isolation, and on the North American at least, I don't know if it's this. I think it's pretty much the same in Europe, right? Where you have like the bullying, the isolation, the social stigmas, and then eventually that has people in their out groups, and you know leads them to hate one another. And then eventually you have these guys who are from most likely third world countries who just don't give a fuck, and they don't care about like the safety or sanctity of like themselves or their own offspring, but like they have to be asked that question as alongside these incels and these like religious fanatics, like, why do you want babies, right? Why do you want children? Why do you want kids? Why do you want offspring? So that's like a little aside personal rambling. um I had scars on my face for roughly about a year and a half. I don't know if I said this before. Sorry if I'm repeating myself. And I recently got tattoos to cover them up. So what I would do before this, like especially like immediately after I got them. So what I did was I had like blackheads, and I was just like trying to use like this like blackhead remover, but then I squeezed my skin too hard and like scarred my face. But then there's like I think bacteria in it. It's like my brother was like cutting my hair and he put his fingernails right in my face, but you know it didn't heal. I had to go get it microneedled, but that didn't really do anything. It just flattened it. So it made it like less noticeable, but it didn't make it go away like fully. It was always going to be like this thing that's just like right there in the middle of my forehead. unmissable. Like it just bothered me a lot. So getting a tattoo to cover them up was like a big change for me because I think, yeah, for roughly like a year and a half, I've been wearing hats and bandanas to just like, the bandana was the excuse because it's like I have like long hair and I don't like, if I wore a hat, it's just gonna like, get messy, it might, fly in my face or whatever, get knotted. But like with the bandana, I could just like comb it all back and then just like use the bandana to tie it back. And then it's like a barrier of like sweat between my head and my hat, so I don't necessarily stain my hat while walking around. I just got this bandana to absorb all my sweat. But I'm just like walking around the mall, right? And I like I said, I haven't done this in like a year and a half. So like I would assume that like pretty much everybody who was seeing me walk around this mall like assumed that I was bald, right? Because it's just like I'm always wearing a hat, and it's like I'm insecure about it or some shit like that. And the difference in how people treated me was fucking insane. Like they would walk up to me and then like I don't know, they would get like kind of like they were stuck in their place, and I would just like walk around them and stuff. It was weird. Some people were like walking up to me. It was like kind of fucked up. Like a lot of guys were walking up to me, looking at me. Guys were getting pissed at me, pissed. And we know which guys I'm talking about. Yeah, that's right. It was the bald guys. And I'm not the one throwing the hate, dude. I'm just like walking around the mall. I got these tattoos on, like for once in my life. I mean, sorry, a year and a half. You know, I don't have to wear the hat. And then like I'm getting all this like hate and attention from these guys, and I'm like, holy fuck, eh? It's just the way it is. You just gonna have to accept the hate, I guess. But as I pondered about it, I began to realize something. It was unnecessary hate. Like, just because I have this doesn't mean, like, I want you to feel bad about your life, but they can kind of feel that because I'm showing off my hair, my forehead, whatever, it's like a betrayal or some shit like that, or like, it's like destroying their worldview. And I also get this funny feeling like from a lot of young guys that like, maybe on the DL, they're on that Fernaster side or whatever to keep their hair. And it's like we're living in 2026, the new generation of like men who are escaping the inevitable. Like, why do you want babies when, excuse me, you're gonna have kids and they're gonna be like, inheriting your traits. I mean, this idea that like we have a consumerism society also extends to like sexual intercourse. Unfortunately, like I would could say unfortunately, but like to a lot of guys out here, like these guys, like instead of beefing with me, why don't you just I don't know, man. Like people like to talk shit, right? And I'm not saying like Japan is perfect. I'm pretty sure they got this shit figured out, in the sense that you have like lonely guys, and you have to facilitate like how you're gonna like take care of them, treat them, this and that. And the laws in Japan are pretty strict, so like people don't want to mess around because it's like a serious like cultural shaming your family. Plus like you can't be landing a job or anything after that. You know what I mean? Like it's just not a smart idea for you to like step out of line in society like that. But it's also like you know I hate to say this. If guys like this can't like be happy with like the opposite gender. I think that like maybe they should like invest in this like AI shit, and then like I don't know, make themselves a girlfriend or like enter the Matrix. Because I rewatched this like whole documentary, right, with the whole like debacle about how Andrew Tate and his whole crew like, and he's like trying, they're all trying to like deny it and shit, even though like they're all about that life, about like hiling the Hitler and shit. I don't want to get kicked out of these Miami clubs now. I didn't know they're all Jewish. Are you fucking idiot? Haven't you watched Scarface? Like, fuck, dude, you're dumb. But anyways, like, oh, don't get me wrong though. I'm gonna get into it with the Jews after. Like, I have to remain impartial, so I gotta like do a follow up with not only Tectone but also like the whole Nick Shirley interview in Manhattan with like the Orthodox Jew crowd. Because there's one thing to like point the finger and laugh at like Somalians and this and that, but like Somalia is technically a third world country. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying like their behavior is like necessary or wanted, but it's like that versus like people who are like bringing people into this world through like welfare and shit and like never working, and then they have like a dozen plus kids, 15, 20 plus kids. Like the fuck, dude. But that video's coming. I'm gonna make like a bunch of videos. Maybe I'm gonna come out with like both of them today. Maybe whatever. But like back on topic, right? Like the thing that I noticed and I actually left out in my last video was that Fresh was actually there. They just left him out of the fucking picture for some reason. And I don't know, the frame, like they didn't want him around because it's just like he's just too black. I'm serious about this. Like I'm laughing not at like how racist this is, like how they're viewing it. I'm just like saying like, yo man, you're around this guy, and they blamed him too. That's the fucked up part. Like fuck, dude. Like I swear, like Andrew Tate is like one of those black guys who's like, yeah, I'm like half black, but like he never really considered himself that, and he just likes to like, brag about it because he can just rock the N word whenever he wants to. He's just like, you know what I mean? I don't think he has like a really like heavy taste into black women, despite his father, right? But besides the point, like Fresh, right? Um, he was blamed for this. They said that he was the one who put the song on. Like, can you imagine that? Like this guy who's like, chocolate, I think yeah, he's Barbados, right? Barbetian, uh, and he's got a heavy tan, and you're gonna expect me to believe that this man is like, yo, DJ, put on that Kanye West song, Heil Hitler. Like, what the fuck, dude? Like, how fucking stupid do you think I am, man? And obviously nobody buys it because it's like these guys are just like other fucking retards and shit that like again that's the sad part because Andrew Tate does have kids, Tristan does have kids, like Clavicular is most likely going to have kids. It's like this thing where they're going to have them even though they should be asked that question, like, why do you want kids for? Like, why? What's the point? Hmm? So utterly fucking useless and shit, right? You act like you're real and stuff. You throw your friends under the bus to make yourself look cool, and you're like so utterly racist and shit. And it's like, you know what it is? It's that thing where they think that if they're like, they fucking treat this guy, they treat him like a fucking animal, right? And then like in front of actual white supremacists, they'll be like, yeah, yeah, this guy's cool, like on the low and shit. And then like they won't like talk about it on the real, like they'll just keep it to themselves and stuff. But that's just my theory. Like, and we also have to like think about all these guys who are like, protesting for, Palestine, but not protesting for Iran. And like even like the whole idea of these terrorists themselves is like, like they know that when you tell them this, they're gonna laugh in your face because they're told to, like that's their commandment, they're obedient to that. But like you have to still have to throw it out there. It's like, oh, why do you want kids for, man? Hmm? It's a real question. They don't really got an answer for that. I'm telling you. They'll tell you some like fact sheet shit. They got the memo. That's about it. When you think about it, like they never really thought about it themselves. And like I'm actually surprised that people didn't start, asking that, from the jump because I think a lot of the times it's the younger crowds that are affected and it catches them by surprise because they just think that like, intercourse is just for pleasure, right? But it's like, obviously like one thing leads to another. So why not ask the question? You know what I mean? Oh my goodness, no. I gotta be an asshole for the rest of the duration of this video because it's just the truth of the matter. Sometimes in life you gotta sit this one out. You know, there's nothing really wrong with like quitting ahead. So excuse me. I would argue that there's a benefit to like doing that in the case that like okay, I didn't really like have a good like lot in life. I didn't really win at life. Wasn't that tall. I lost my hair. I had a weight problem. Or else I was too skinny. And I was, you know what I mean? Like something that just for a fact that like if you have kids, that your kids are gonna have it too. And you gotta ask yourself like, yo, is that what I want? Is that what I want in this kind of fucking world and shit? Yeah, I can be an asshole about that and be like, okay, think about that because I'm in a better position and shit like that. But like, no. I also have to like, rationalize like other people and them wanting to have kids. And how that's gonna affect, not just the life of my kids, but their lives for their children, etc., etc., right? Like it's an ongoing thing that I think if we don't address the selfish nature of I guess society's expectation that we should all, start families and having kids, then maybe we can, actually like solve this kind of like anxiety problem, this kind of like, problem that, you don't measure up, but you think you do. And when you don't, you have to take it out on other people or some shit like that. It's always some shit like that, right? And maybe I'm just speculating because it's like it's easy for me to point the finger at people who like have clear problems and stuff, rather than like that person who was like, oh, he had everything going for him. How did he like how did that happen to him type shit? But it's not hard to see that like, especially on the YouTube side, how all these guys who have problems, you know, they're all just using it as kind of like a cope because they can't just like look themselves in the mirror and really ask themselves that question. It's like, well, why should I just pass my genes on? Why should I have kids? I know it's like sick to say that, but like you're going 8 billion strong, and like the world really doesn't care about you. You really got to ask that question. As harsh as it is, it's a true question to ask. Well, take care, everybody.